going to continue with Hebrews. I know we were supposed to do chapter 1. Like the goal is to kind of get through this in 10 weeks, which is there's 13 chapters. So we'll do, but yesterday or last week we only did 4 verses. The first 4 verses of Hebrews 1. And if anything we could see, so the book of Hebrews is, we don't know who the author is. Okay, people have guesses. Was it Paul? Most likely people think it was Paul. Some people think it was Apollos. Some people think it was Barnabas. But we really don't know. But what we do know is it was most likely written before 70 AD. Is because the Jewish the sacrifices were in the present tense, which means that they were continuing. They were ongoing after 70 AD. There's no sense of sacrifice after that. And most likely that the audience is a group of Hebrews, right? Jewish Christians. This is why it's named Hebrews, right? It's most likely because they were on the verge of backsliding, because every generation, and again, this is something that you kind of see it through time, is that, like, say, the boomer generation, the millennial generation, every generation goes through something, and it makes that, like, a 9/11, a JFK assassination, whatever it is, that it kind of forms the way you are. It really does. It really forms your emotional state and also your mental state too. So majority of people think in a certain way, right? And when we study people 2,000 years ago, you're taking a 21st century mindset and put, but it's good to know this is the way they thought at the time. This is what they dealt with. And really the book of Hebrews is to show that essentially Christ is superior. Christ is better, and he's better in contrast to who, to what. And these are the ideas that the Jews had at the time that were like, no, you cannot be greater than Aaron, Moses, an angel, right? And the author of Hebrews is kind of combating their ideas and giving them warnings throughout his letter. Okay, so essentially in chapter 1, he starts off with Christ. Like the first 4 verses, I'll read them to you, are essentially Christ being superior, right? Long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets, and in these days he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, whom he also created the world. He is a radiance of the glory of God, the exact imprint of his nature. He upholds the universe by the word of his power. After making purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of majesty on high, having become, and here it's verse 4, having become a much superior to angels, as the name he had inherited is more excellent than theirs. Okay? And so for today, we're going to continue this because we stopped there last week, but we're going to continue chapter 1. We'll do chapter 2 today. Okay? We'll try. But essentially, it's going to elaborate on that verse 4, that Jesus is better than angels. Now, to us, it's like, yeah, we know that. But to them, to the Jewish mindset, remember, there was such a strict, an upheld view that they had concerning angels. Do you guys remember why? Like when you think of an angel, what comes to your mind?
Well, sometimes they protect people, angels.
Yeah. So you think of protection. You might think like angels. Was it? I watched.
With the message.
I was gonna quote that film I saw way back when videotapes. Angels in the outfield. And I'm angels, right? I was young. I was like standing up. You got all emotional, and you're just.
What is it?
You have to see the film.
Michael.
What's that?
Michael.
Archangel Michael.
He's kind of a vicious person. I mean, he's kind of a scary person.
Yeah.
But he's a good person, though.
So remember, angels are terrifying beings.
Yeah.
They're terrifying beings. I think humans are very superstitious. I don't know if it's just me. Like if you're alone in the dark, your mind wanders. Like maybe maybe someone's standing there, or you know what I mean. Like that's just how horror films make its way around. Is through superstition. But like angels would be something I'd be terrified of as a child. You just
I always say, do not be afraid.
Yeah, but there's a reason. That's why is that I think there's an appearance thing, right? Now, to a Jewish mindset, we read the book of Daniel. We went through the book of Daniel, and when you read the book of Daniel, angels are always there, and like, I believe in territorial spirits, and it's from Daniel chapter 10. When I say territorial spirits, as we think of the world, right, is that you only get this from Daniel's book. Is that there's almost like an angel or a demon per area, per region, right? And this is only in Daniel 10 that you'll read this, where it's like, well, there was the prince of Persia. Well, there was the Medo-Persia at the time versus Babylon, but there was the spirit of Israel. There was this, right? There was an angel, and they were combating each other while people were going to war. So could you just imagine the wars that go on in the world or in the last couple thousands of years, and you just take off our physical blinders and you see the spirit world? I'm pretty sure. Like I really believe that. I really believe that there would be actual like spirit beings. And now to a Jew, they believe that just like we do. It's just there was an overemphasis on angels because what? The angel gave the law to Moses. Right, we think it's God. Right, we read those 3 passages last week, which was what Acts 7:53, which is the law delivered by the angels, and this is Galatians 3:19, put in place through angels, talking about the law. Right, so obviously Jews uphold the law, but who is the law given by? We can say God, but it's technically angels. Right, so Bonnie?
I think most people. Well, maybe not most, but quite a few people used to think angels were only females. You're such an angel.
Yeah. Or like, really, and angels are really transgender, right? Like
they're not one way.
Yeah, they're non-male or non-female. Like the Bible speaks in the masculine. Like we would talk about God, it's he. God's not a he. You know what I mean? It's a human way of trying to interact with the divine. Is that we have to put these human terms on it, like he, she, or what. So people, you want to debate he or she, that's fine. Like God is God, yeah. Right? An angel is an angel. It's trans. This is our language by biological humans. This is what we deal with, and we're trying to understand the divine. You know what I mean? With through our. So imagine ants, just thinking of what humans have to deal with, right? Just different mindset, right? So, anyways, but there was such a high priority of angels from a Jewish mindset that when Christ came, it was like, who is Jesus, right? And there was this temptation to think that Jesus was just an elevated angel, right? And this is where the author of Hebrews says, well, we'll have to talk about this. Okay, so let's go to chapter 1, and then can someone read 5 to 14? So essentially the rest of the chapter. 5 to 14. Can someone read that loud?
For to which of the angels did God ever say, "You are my son, today I have begotten you"? On again, "I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son." And again, when he brings the firstborn into the world, he says that all God's angels worship him. Of the angels he says, "He makes his angels winds, and his ministers a flame of fire." But of the Son he says, "Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of uprightness is the scepter of your kingdom. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore God, your God, has anointed you with all the oils of gladness beyond your companions. And you, Lord, laid the foundation of the earth in the beginning, and the heavens are works of your hands. And they will perish, but you remain. they will all wear out like a garment. Like a robe you will roll them up. Like a garment they will be changed. But you are the same, and your years will have no end. And to which of the angels has he ever said, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies footstool for your feet? Are they not all ministering spirits sent out to serve for the sake of those who are to inherit salvation?
All right. So from verse 5 to 14, he quotes 7 Old Testament passages to prove the point of verse 4. Okay, so he's going to use a bunch of Old Testament passages to be like, look, okay, like in the Old Testament, let's contrast angels and let's bring this idea that Jesus is more superior. And just so we'll begin just by verse 4 and 5, where he says, for which is the angels did God say, you are my son, today I have begotten you? Or again, I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. So he quotes Psalm 2, verse 7 at first, and then he quotes 2 Samuel 7:14. But the point of it is this. There's a specific name given to Jesus, and that's son. Now, one can argue that in the Old Testament, angels were also called sons of God, right? Job 1:6, right? But Jesus was the son, right? He was the son, and that's the point. It's a special royalty that the son had, right? So essentially, angels are servants. The son is king. That's what that's his point. Look even verse 14 where he says, "Are they not all ministering spirits sent out to serve for the sake of those who are to inherit salvation?" Who's that? That's us. So angels serve God. Angels serve you, humans. Right? It even says in 1 Corinthians 6:3, Paul says that eventually we're going to judge angels. Right? Right. If you like, you guys know that passage, 1 Corinthians 6:3, where he says you guys are going to judge angels, right? If you want to read that, see we see that super. We are like, oh really? but this is so our positional status is that, remember, this world was created not for angels but for you, an image bearer. Okay, so technically, there is an authority that we possess, not current because of our fallen state. And this is what the author of Hebrews is trying to communicate, right? So essentially, angels serve. Okay, Jesus is being served in his current state right now, right? So that's the big difference. There's divine royalty with Christ, but when it comes to angels, they're servants. They're always going to be servants.
Even when we all go to heaven. What are they going to be?
Yeah, I think that's their nature. That's what they do. Yeah, that's what they do. As far as any form of future redemption for the fallen angels, because a demon is an angel, you know that, right? A demon is an angel. Like try to think of a demon not as like the horns and dark. It's more like pleasant, right? That's the point of it. Is the heart of a demon will incentivize our desires that will kill us to feed that. Like that's the heart of what. And
they tempt people.
Yeah. Guess what? If some dark Lord of the Rings creature comes up, you're gonna be scared, right? But if someone comes in like an elf, all like glowy, and hey, try that, you're gonna be, that's gonna be more desirable, and that's the essence of what demons do. Right? What does Paul say in 2 Corinthians? He disguised himself as an angel of light, not darkness. Right? So, again, the heart... Do you have a question, Trish?
Did some people think Jesus was an angel?
Yeah. So, Jehovah's Witnesses...
So that's why they're saying
correct.
No. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to write this.
Exactly.
I never heard that people thought of Jesus as an angel.
So we're going to talk about it later, but yes, it was a common view at the time, and still, who believes that Jesus is an angel, a glorified angel? Jehovah's Witnesses, right? The ones that knock on your door when you go to a mall, will have the table out, and jw.org. Yeah, they believe that Jesus is an Archangel Michael.
So they don't believe he's the Son of God.
No, not the way we do. They'll call him, they'll give him the title, but their equivocation, their definition is completely different. Because you're talking about Archangel Michael, they believe he's Archangel Michael. Yeah.
But don't you get your salvation through Jesus?
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
That's why we don't view them as Orthodox. We don't view them in the faith. So Catholic, Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox, and Protestant, like that's the circle of like salvation, like proper, like basic theology. But then you step outside of that, now you're going to heresy, which is like not a belief about like which socks you wear or like what kind of like no, these are like salvation issues that we believe. Yeah, like saying that Jesus is just a glorified angel, that's huge, because you now forfeit your salvation essentially. Like how, and we'll talk about that later. Like why a divine being, why he had to become God, why he had to become man, right? So, yeah. So now, so the angels are servants, the Son is king. Okay, continue in verse 6 to 8. He says, and again, when he brings the firstborn into the world, he says, let all angels worship him. Of the angels, he says, he makes his angels winds, and his minister a flame of fire. Quote Psalm 104, verse 4. So angels worship what? The Son is worshipped. Okay, look at it. Verse 6, to all God's angels, what? Worship him. To the angels, he says, worship Christ. Okay, so angels worship, Christ is worship. Big difference. Okay, remember, the only being in Scripture that the Bible, God commands to be worshipped is who? Is God. Okay, Isaiah 42, verse 8, he says, my glory I give to no other. My glory I give to no other. Okay, so now there's worship directed towards Jesus and no rebuke, right? If he's a glorified angel or he's just an angel, then there should be a rebuke, right? Many times, twice in the book of Revelation, remember, whenever someone would see an angel, they get scared and sometimes they'd worship them, right? But what did the angels do naturally? Stand up, come on, right? I'm just an angel, right?
you just said it earlier, and I forgot what you said. Service?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they do not accept worship. Okay, but Jesus, he accepts worship. Right? Remember doubting Thomas? He says, "My Lord, my God." He calls him God. And he blesses him. He doesn't say, "Don't call me that." He blesses him. Okay? So remember Isaiah 6, right? The angels are worshiping God. The book of Revelation, the angels are worshiping God. So angels worship. Jesus receives worship. Big difference. Okay? Let's continue. Verse 10 and 12, he says, notice how, verse 8. I want to read. But of the Son, he says, is the Father. Okay, says, "Your throne, O God, is forever and ever." The scepter of unrighteousness is the scepter of your kingdom. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Okay, what does the Father say? Your throne, what?
Forever and ever.
Yeah. Your throne, what? Well, what does your translation say?
Will last forever and ever.
Okay. Mine says, "Your throne, O God, is forever and ever." Is yours say that, Virginia?
It's a God. I just skipped that part.
Oh. That's good.
Last forever and
Yeah,
ever.
but what's the Father saying? Your throne,
Oh God.
oh God. Okay, so remember, is Jesus God? What does the Father say the Son is? The Father calls the Son God, right? In this passage. Okay? Verse 10, "You, Lord, laid the foundations of the earth, and the beginning of the heavens are the work of your hands. They will perish, but you remain, and they will all wear out like a garment. Like a robe, you will roll them up like a garment, they will be changed. You are the same, and your years will have no end, quoting Psalm 102, 25 to 27. Okay, so essentially this is about creation. The Lord laid the foundations of the earth in the beginning, right? So angels are created, the Son is the creator. That's the point. That. One sec, guys.
What is that?
It's a
Fire alarm?
Could be a carbon monoxide.
We skipped 7, didn't we? Skip verse 7?
Did I skip it?
No, so he skipped it.
Oh.
I had questions about. I had specific questions about
I
that.
asked questions, did angels dive in?
Does it say fire or carbon? Or both?
My question is, it says he makes his angel spirits and his servants a flame of fire. Is he saying that both the angels are the servants, or is he differentiating those two?
Oh, I think the angels, well, the angels serve, so they would be servants.
Yeah, but the way it's written, it's like they're two different things, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
it will start here.
Did it stop? Or did you guys
It
stop?
stopped on its own. Maybe the batteries are low or something.
That devil snuck in here
He
when we were
did?
talking about him.
It didn't. No, I can't hear.
And it sounded like different ones.
That's enough
Yeah, it
to
was-
pierce your
It
ear.
sounded like this one and the one in there.
Both at the same time, that's weird.
Yeah, you set off for nothing too.
I mean,
You said it's the devil. The devil's on fire.
came here and
See,
said,
we
you
were-
don't be talking about us and the angels.
Well, that was weird.
Well, oh, I didn't press stop.
So do angels die?
Not that we know of. No. That's a good question. Not that we know of.
I mean, angels would have to be born then. And
Yeah.
more angels would have to be born.
Yeah,
if
like the
angels
reproductive nature. I don't know. That's a good question. I'd like to say no, but I don't fully know. And here's why. Is because the Bible's not about God and angels. The Bible's about God and man. That's why it's man anthropology. Angels are more servants, side creatures. They're mentioned, but they're not the emphasis. So something like, where I say I believe in territorial spirits. That's a big claim to make. I'll have one chapter to make, Daniel chapter 10, right? But that's why I'm not going to like have a doctrine about like we believe that what happened in the the Middle East was the angel or the demon of it. I don't know. That's why I'm like I'll answer what I think. But again, there's limited information that we have. So, but that's it. But again, I've thought of it too in the sense of like, do they? Because like when they fight, well, if you can't die, why fight? Right? But I don't know. It's just
To show
That's where
who's the
eternal life
strongest.
comes in, right?
You don't have to
Yeah.
die.
yeah, but I don't know. Why?
I don't know either,
Like just why go to war? And if you can't die, 1 versus 500. If you're the one and you can't die, like come on, bring it.
but- Well, if you're not a Christian, you might die.
Right? What's that?
If you're not a Christian, you might die.
Yeah.
But if you are a Christian, you have eternal life, right?
Yeah.
If you're talking about the angels, definitely you think they would be Christians, so.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Everyone knows, the spirit world knows that Jesus is Lord. Like, I don't think that applies to them. Maybe it does. But I know for sure that the angel world, the angelic world, doesn't have this problem. And this problem that we have is we're very limited. I'm in one place at one time. Right, had immigration issues for a year and a half. I mean, right, we're only in one place in one time, right? Or we're very limited. We can't necessarily see, like, this is why there's something called atheism. People can't, right? Their minds can't understand the other world. but one thing is for sure is that the angelic world, like I think they know, but it's not a matter of knowledge, like him being Lord or not. I think it's a matter of heart. Our issue too, right? And what I mean by that is, you have Mark 5 where Legion, many demons, says, calls Christ Lord, essentially, right? He says, aren't you the Most High God, right? So I said, they know who he is.
Oh, yeah.
And then in James 2 it says, demons believe and they shudder. So the point of James was like, you believe but you have no works, so you believe, so what? Demons believe and they're afraid.
Yeah.
Right?
They were begging them not to let the pigs go
Exactly.
up the cliff.
But
Begging,
but
"Please don't
my
do that."
point is, these are demons or fallen angels, but they knew who Christ was.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of identity. Like we're talking about identity here. We're like, but to them, I don't think it's a matter of identity. I think it's emotional, right? It's I can't submit to this thing. I can't submit to God. I can't submit versus other angels they could submit. Yeah. So, but I think we can say that angelic beings have pride issues, right? Just like we do. So, it's interesting. Yeah.
What do Jews think of angels?
This is the essence of it. They elevate them to a higher standard. Yeah.
The Jews do?
Yes. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Because of this, because they're all about the Torah, right? And who gave them the Torah? Angels did, and that was the point. Yeah. So when they were talking about Jesus in the first century, it's like, oh, this is a glorified angel, maybe.
But if Jesus is a glorified angel, and the Jews are worshiping angels, so they're kind of accepting Jesus, right? To a certain extent.
Yeah, but it's
And not
it's not the Jesus. Today, Jews don't believe in Jesus. They don't.
No.
They believe he's like just some prophet that tried to lead a revolt in first century Palestine or Israel, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's, yeah. I say that because people debate Palestine, Israel. It's like, right? But what I'm saying is like that's what they believe. He was a first century person that tried to lead a revolt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
It's complicated, huh?
What's that?
It's complicated, huh?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But remember, the heart of what he's saying here is that Jesus created, right? Angels, they were created, and they never created anything. So it says in Psalm 148, verse 2 and 5, praise him, all his angels, for he commanded, and they were all created. See that? So angels were created. Job 38, verse 4 to 7 says, morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God, so they're called sons of God, shouted for joy. So the whole point of Job 38 was when the world was being created, God was creating the world. They were there, which means that angels were created before the world, but they were cheering. They were celebrating.
Wow.
They never created, but they were celebrating in the midst of creation. Jesus was creating. So remember, John 1:3, Colossians 1:16, and Hebrews 1:3 we talked about last week all mention that Jesus created. And then you go to Isaiah 44:24 and it says that only God created the world. He alone stretched out the heavens, it says. Okay? So remember, that's the point of him quoting Psalm 102 from verse 10 to 12. And last, it says in verse 13, to which of the angels has he ever said, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet? This is Psalm, the most famous Old Testament passage quoted in the New Testament, Psalm 110, verse 1. Okay? So the angels stand, the sun sits. Okay, big difference. Angels stand, and they're always worshiping. They're always worshiping. Revelation 7:14, the angels were standing around the throne. What is Jesus doing? He's on the throne. Big difference. Okay? So essentially, there is a emphasis on the divinity of Christ in chapter 1. That's what it's about. All right, well, what it's about is it's going to prove the divinity of Jesus. He is God, but obviously above the angels. Okay? So there was a person that wrote I think it was Robert Bowman wrote an acronym for this passage called HANDS. Honors, attributes, names, deeds, and seat. Proving that he is God, so he is honored, right? Jesus received the worship due to him alone, chapter 1, verse 6, right? It emphasizes him being worshipped. Only God is to be worshipped. He's honored. Attributes, Jesus possesses eternal and unchanging nature, right? Hebrews 1:3. And names, right? He's given the name Lord. He's given the name Son. He's given the name God, right? I mean, that was my point of quoting Hebrews 1:8. Your throne, O God. There's one thing if a human being calls him God, right? People like to debate that, but there's another thing when the Father calls the Son God. That's where we kind of leave the discussion. Like, all right, he is God. Okay. Deeds. Jesus created all things, right? Only God created the world. Jesus created the world. And last is seat. Jesus shares is God's throne, essentially, of authority. Okay. So it's very clear from chapter 1 that Christ is superior over the angels, and he uses these 7 Old Testament references to show that Jesus is more superior. Okay, let's go to chapter 2, and he continues with a train of thought, but he also gives a warning. Okay, can someone read chapter 2, verses 1 to 4? Chapter 2, verses 1 to 4.
For this reason we must pay closer attention to what we have heard, lest we drift away from it. For if the word spoken through angels proved unalterable, and every transgression and disobedience received a just recompense, how shall we escape if we neglect so great a salvation? After it was at the first spoken word spoken through the Lord, it was confirmed to us by those who heard, God also bearing witness to them, both by signs and wonders, and by various miracles and gifts of the Holy Spirit according to his own will.
Okay, so look at verse 1. So chapter 2, he's going to continue on with this whole concept, the whole thought of Jesus is more superior to the angels. But he gives them a warning in chapter 2, verse 1. Therefore we must pay closer attention to what we have heard, lest we drift away from it.
Yeah.
Lest we drift away from it. Okay, so this right here, when it's talking about drifting away, is not about salvation. Okay, as far as you drift away and you lose your salvation, it's more about your personal devotion, your worship from God. That it is possible for humans to drift away from God in this life, right? For since the message is declared by angels, okay, proved by angels, proved to be reliable, in every transgression or disobedience received a just retribution. So what he's saying here is, think of this: they were elevating angels. The angels got the Torah, and they gave it to Moses, and then obviously we read it, but notice in the Old Testament, whenever there was disobedience, what happened? It says, every retribution or disobedience received what? A just retribution. There's always punishment. Someone stole, the ground opened up and ate them alive, right? You know, like kind of like Star Wars, you know. But like whenever there's stonings, there was always a sense of retribution. Justice that had to happen. Okay. Now, shall we, if we neglect such a greater salvation? Essentially, an angel gave the Torah to people, and if they disobeyed the Torah, then there was punishment. Now, forget angels and the Torah. We have Jesus, someone that's actually more superior than angels, not just giving the Torah, but what? The gospel message. You don't think there's going to be consequences if you deny the gospel message in comparison to the Torah given by angels? Of course there's going to be consequences. It was declared at first by the Lord, and it was attested to us by those who heard, which God also bore witness by what? Signs and wonders and various miracles, and by the gifting of the Holy Spirit distributed according to his will. Right? So this message was given by signs, By wonders, by miracles. What are some signs that Jesus came down or that God came and confirmed this message? He's at a party. There's water, and he says, make it into wine.
Okay.
Right? Miracles happened.
Of course, he fussed about it. He didn't really want to. But
What's that?
he kind of fussed at it. He didn't really want to do that.
Oh, he's like, you know what?
He says, I'm busy.
You know what? 1900 years from now, there's going to be a group called the Baptists. I'm going to make. They're going to debate about this. Take that, right? But again, like there's miracles that happened. Remember, he quotes Luke's gospel. In Luke's gospel, he quotes the Old Testament because of the signs. And he says, "This has been fulfilled before you," right? There was wonders, right? What wonders can come to your mind? Miracles.
Bringing people back to life.
Bringing people back to life, right? Something that
Healing people.
only God could do, right? But again, these were given, right? And gifts of the Holy Spirit, especially. But you see this throughout the book of Acts, throughout the book of Luke. Okay, so that this is the point: is an angel comes down and gives them the law. There was punishment for it. Now the Son, who is greater, gives a greater message. You don't think there's going to be punishment, right? In comparison to the law of Moses, right? Of course, and this is eternal here. This is eternal. So don't drift away, he's saying. Okay, don't drift away. Now, in verse 1 where he says we must pay closer attention to what you have heard, lest we drift away. The Greek word for drift is essentially comes from the illustration of a boat. Okay, if you're on a boat, how do people drift just in life? Drift.
Get in the water.
They just let go.
Go.
Okay, but so you're on a boat. Okay, you're on a boat, and we have an anchor. Okay, but what does the anchor do?
Holds you there.
Hold you still.
From
Drifting away.
Drifting away.
so drifting implies an opposing force. There has to be an opposing force. Okay, so passivity, being passive, losing a reference point, and an opposing force. That's the combination of drifting. Okay, so if you're on a boat, you have an anchor because by nature, there's two forces that will push a boat away: the wind and the waves, right? And if you're passive, guess what happens? You naturally drift away. Okay, but when you drift, it's slow. Sometimes it's unnoticeable. Okay, and when it comes to what's the term we use in the 21st century in church? The word we use was backsliding, right? Right. Slide your back in the pew, no. But backsliding. But again, when someone backslides, it's not momentary. It's not an event. It's always like say a year, say 2 years. But remember, just like a boat, there's always an external force that pushes you. There has to be a competing force. Okay, so I think when I say the slow nature of it, I think I gave you this illustration before. Remember, like that when you put a frog, right, inside hot boiling water, it just jumps out, right? You put a frog in lukewarm water, and you boil it slowly, it just dies, right? And it wasn't the instantaneous moment; it was the progressive through time, and it killed it, right? So that famous passage, Judges 16, where Samson was a prophet. Remember that. He was a judge. He was supposed to lead the people of Israel, right? And what happened to Samson? It says when he slept with Delilah, right? And his third time, it says he did not know that the Lord had left him. He did not know that the Lord had left him, even though he's a prophet of God, right? But why? How come he did not know that God had left him? Because it was slow. It was progressive. It was to the point that he himself did not know that God had left him because of his own choices, right? And it wasn't number 1 with Delilah. It was number 3, meaning it happened through time. Okay? So we drift, I wrote, we lose resistance to a compelling force, okay? So a compelling force, so wind. As far as a human, I would say, what's a compelling force that you can lose faith, right? I would say culture. And what culture is a normativity based upon desires. So all of us, because we're in a fallen state, we have desires that could affect us, could affect other people, and say we feed that. We feed that into the public. We feed that into, and it becomes an idea, a general idea. But this now general idea is a force against our current culture, right? And because we live in it, it might come your way, just like the waves, just like the wind, or you can remain to be anchored. When you're not anchored, guess what happens? That wind or that force will slowly blow you away. Okay, so name something in culture that is like an external force that will push you, that will drift you away. What do you think?
Well, a lot of people are trying to get people to believe there is no God.
Okay.
You know, it's all in our imagination.
Yeah.
Social media.
Social media.
Yeah.
So remember, someone famous or an idea that's out there in the world, like a product, is there because remember, we all have multiple desires. We have good, we have bad, but it's what's fed. It's what's fed. So it's a force, like the way, like the water, like the wind.
The demons, yeah.
Right? So there are influences because that exists inside of us, right? That your child, yourself, might get pulled into if you're passive. That's a key word.
Yeah.
Faith must be active, but if you're passive, it will pull you away. Okay, an external force. Also, losing a fixed reference point. Okay, this is essentially how you drift away. Is you lose that ultimate destination. Like what drifting implies a destination. Drifting implies this is where I'm. Was that a horn?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, that was my chair. I was like, whoa, that was. I was like, so I turned at the same time. I was like, well, it was loud.
Here.
Yeah.
Your hair's on fire.
Yeah. But drifting implies I'm supposed to be here, right? But when you lose that reference point, that's essentially how drifting happens, right? It's JFK Jr., right? I think of his death, the way when in 1999, where you guys know when he was flying to, was it Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, and what they said was it was pilot error that he died.
Yeah.
And pilot error, and it was because he was not trained. So Peter's a pilot. He's not here today, but pilots are trained either manually, right? And you could see your ultimate destination, right? But it's safe also is to use instruments, right? And the thing with JFK, he was not trained with instruments, with the instrument of he had to be solely relying on what he saw, but he flew out too late to the point he saw absolutely nothing, right? And then so in his mindset, he thinks he's all the way up here, right? But in reality, he's like a couple of feet away from the water, and they die, right? And he completely lost his reference point. It's like you ever go to the beach and you leave your valuables, you leave your towel, and you just go into the water, and all of a sudden you're having fun for like 30 minutes, and all of a sudden you turn around and you're like, where am I? My stuff got stolen, right? But the reality is you drifted. You lost your reference point. You were having so much fun, and there was an external force, right, that was pushing you slowly away because you're being passive, because you're having fun. And next thing you know, you're in a different location. Same thing. Remember, it implies there has to be a destination. It implies passivity. It implies an external force. Right? And the same thing with all of us. There's an ultimate destination that we have, and that is Christ, the gospel, right? But there's also an external force, but there's also our attitude, and that's, are we passive or not? Are we passive or not? Okay, so if someone's passive within 5 years, the exact same thing's going to happen in their faith, and say they're on fire, and all. Within 5 years, they're going to be like the person on the beach. It's going to be like, wait, where am I? What happened? Right? 5 years ago, I was like this. Now I'm here. Right? There was a sense of passiveness that happened. Right? Any questions so far? Oh, online? All right. Can someone read verse 5 to 8? 5 to 8. Chapter 2, verse 5 to 8.
For it was not to the angels that he had subjected the world to come, of which we are speaking, but someone in certain place testified, saying, What is a man that you are mindful of him, or the son of man that you care for him? You made him a little lower than the angels. You crowned him with glory and honor, and set him over the works of your hands. You have put all things in subjection under his feet. For in subjecting all things under him, he left nothing that is subjected to him. Yet now we do not see all things subject to him, but we see Jesus, who was made a little lower than the angels to suffer death, crowned with glory and honor, so that he, by the grace of God, should experience death for everyone.
All right.
That was mine.
So 5 to 8, okay? For it was not to angels that God subjected the world to come. So again, why was the world created? For cats? Sorry. I thought of a tiger. I literally thought of it. No. This looks so bad. I'm like picking on Trish. I'm dead serious. I was going to say a dog. I'm like, that's too harsh. I said a cat. But when I said a cat, I thought of a tiger. A big cat. Not the little, sorry. but like, no, like the world was not made for animals. The world was not made for angels. That's his point. The world is not made, it was made for what? For us. For people. Okay? It was not angels that God subjected, of which he speaks. Now, it has been testified somewhere, and what he does, he quotes Psalm 8 here. Very, very, very famous passage. What is man that you are mindful of him, the son of man, just that you care for him? You made him what? A little lower than the angels. Okay? Currently, present tense. Okay? Meaning when we're going to judge angels, that's future in our glorified bodies. Currently, if you put a tiger here, it'll kill me. It'll kill all of us. We have no chance, right? Maybe with a sword or whatever. But what I'm saying is like, there's something very frail about us. We die, we age, right? The only real essential value is you're an image bearer. You're an image bearer. That's what sets us as humans apart from the rest. Okay? And we're created for that. Okay? But remember, so you made him a little lower than the angels. You have crowned, so current present tense, we're a little lower than the angels. You have crowned him with what? Glory and honor, putting everything in subjection under his feet. So essentially, you were created for honor. You were created for glory. You were created for dignity. Okay? This is what makes humanity tick. Okay? You ever has anyone stole something from you? Anyone stole something from you? Maybe it was caught on camera, right? Or you see someone steal. Are you happy when that happens? No? No. There's a disgust. There's an anger. It should be. Why? Why is that? Is it okay? Someone steals my water. Okay, someone steals it, and I get angry. Am I angry because someone stole my water? No. Obviously, there could be objects that are valuable. I understand. I'm not trying to say, but I'm trying to go deeper. There is something when it comes to you've crossed a line of disrespect. You've violated my dignity, as if I'm not what? Human. You see that? It's a human language that we can go 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years. this same principle would apply. Is that there is something that when it comes to human dignity that we must respect. The reason why you're getting angry, the reason why you experience something called grief when you lose someone or or someone steals something, you get angry, is because your dignity was violated. That's why. That's why you feel like doing something really bad right now, is because your dignity was violated. You got to put words on that, right? Why was your dignity violated? Because you were created for proper dignity. You're not created to be disrespected. Your natural nature is for complete respect, right? For not worship, right? I'm not going overboard here, but in its proper order, right? When someone was not honored, when someone was not respected at an early age, bad parenting, bullying, abuse, whatever it is, I'm not saying this person's going to be there will be problems mentally, psychologically within that person. Why? Because they weren't formed the way they were supposed to, that the goal goes along with their nature. You see that? You were created for honor. Now the problem is this: we're fallen. So I have this dignity that I'm supposed to that we have, but we're also fallen too. You know what this fallen nature makes me do? It makes me violate other people's dignities. And then what they say: hurt people, right? And then you're going to pass it along, and then they're going to pass it along, and the next generation, and that's humanity, right? And we have a hard time ruling. You know that?
What?
Ruling, right? You look at your phone, you see politics. That's point proven. I don't care left, I don't care right. The point is there's a contention of agreement, right? And that's because, again, we don't know how to rule, but we're created to rule. But what? We have a fallen state. And this is not America. This is all the way back from Genesis chapter 3, right? So we're supposed to rule in a proper way, but we don't. Right? It's always like when you read the Old Testament, they went to war against them and they slaughtered them, and on and on and on and on and on. And now we're in the year 2026. Okay. So it's we have dignity, but there's a sense of dishonor that we have because of this is the human struggle. Essentially, this is the human struggle. But verse 9, right? Now Christ set the standard. Now He has brought it back into order. And it's the already not yet. He's brought it back, but He will continue. We're not fully there yet. This is what the new heavens is about, right? It's a world in proper order. Okay, verse 9. But we see Him who for a little while was made lower than the angels, namely crowned with glory and honor because of the sacrifice of death, so that by the grace of God He might taste death for everyone. Okay, because the ultimate end when it comes to the fall is death. Okay, physical death. Okay. Can someone read verse 10 to 13? 10 to 13.
For it was fitting that He, for whom and by whom all things exist, in bringing many sons to glory, should make the founder of their salvation perfect through suffering. For He who sanctifies and those who are sanctified all have one source. That is why He is not ashamed to call them brothers, saying, I will tell you of your name to my brothers. In the midst of the congregation I will sing your praise. And again I will put trust in Him. And again, behold, I am the children of God. Behold, I am the children of God has given me.
So the work that Christ put in, remember, that gets transferred to you. This is the propitiation, right? 2 Corinthians 5:21. He made Him who knew no sin to be sin on our behalf, that we might become the righteousness of God through Him. So remember, now we have the perfect person who has done it, finally, right? Not Donald Trump, not some other politician, Jesus Christ that's finally done it. Right? And now as a result, I can, at least positionally before God, do it because of Christ. Right? It's hard practically. I think all of us, as we live life, it's very hard. Right? But at least positionally through Christ we can. Okay? At least we can. Now, can someone read 10 to 17? Actually, you know what? Just finish it off. 10 to 18.
You just left off 14.
14. Sorry, 14. 14 to 18.
So then, as the children share in flesh and blood, he likewise took part in these, so that through death he might destroy him who has the power of death, that is, the devil, and deliver those who through fear of death were throughout their lives subject to bondage. For surely he does not help the angels, but he helps the seed of Abraham. Therefore in all things it was necessary for him to be made like his brothers, so that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make atonement for the sins of the people. For since he himself suffered while being tempted, he is able to help those who are being tempted.
All right. So here it's chapter 2 is more about the humanity of Jesus. Chapter 1, divinity. You know, chapter 1, we quote those seven Old Testament passages, essentially saying he's better than the angels. This, it's now emphasizing he's human. Right? He's human. Since therefore the children share what in the blood, the flesh and blood, he likewise partook of the same things. So now he's flesh and blood. John 1:14 all over again. Right? So chapter 1, divinity. Chapter 2, his humanity. So I'm a human. Jesus had to become a human too. Okay? So now, when you hear about talks about Jesus, it's all about, like, know what? Like, if you know history, Jesus is like the most talked about person. Like people wrote about him. There was Western civilization was built. You know what I mean? Like, he's a real human being. Okay? If you're a staunch atheist, I'm sorry. You have to acknowledge that he is a real human being. Okay? Now, no one denies that. What we deny in the 21st century, what people, it's a moth. What people speculate is that's a fallen butterfly. Right? I say, like there's the butterfly, it's all beautiful, and then there's the fallen, but it's the moth. No. but what we question nowadays is the divinity of Jesus. That's what some people question. Is he really God? Right? Like that's what Muslims debate, that's what Jews debate, that's what Christians debate against. Right? Is he God? Not so much in the first century. It was kind of the opposite. Is that they knew he was God. Okay, so the majority of the ecumenical councils when the church met together, it was all about like specifying his divinity. But what was common, even in the New Testament, was they were not denying his divinity; they were denying his humanity. Okay, and you see this in 1 John, where John is like, we touched him, we sat down with him, we ate fish with him. Right? He ate food, and no, it didn't come out of it. It didn't just fall out. It was real. But the point is, they had such a hard time wrapping their minds around the fact that God became a human being. Okay, and so much to the point that they denied his humanity. Right? So you have the Gnostics. Right? This is why 1 John was written, was to show that, hey, he came in the flesh. He came in the flesh. Okay, and there was another group called the Docetists. The Docetists believed that Jesus appeared to be a human being. So he was God, but he appeared. And the reason why is because all matter is evil. That's what they believe. All matter is fallen. Okay? So matter is just matter. It's neither good nor bad. It's more moral or amoral. It just is. They put an ethical criteria over it and says it's immoral. Okay? But the reason why there was so much debate back then was to show, no, he is both God and he is both man. Okay? So you ever think of why Jesus had to die on the cross? He had to be God?
I was thinking that. I was wondering that today.
Yeah. Like couldn't God be like, oh, Genesis, Adam, Eve, and they fell. So you know what? I forgive you. Just snap of a finger. Why couldn't God do that? Why did humanity have to go through all these wars and brutality, and then he had to come into human flesh and just get the worst public humiliation, right? Beat, blood, right? Why couldn't God just forgive?
I've wondered that too.
Well, just think of it. if God did that, if he just snapped his finger, God would be all loving, but he wouldn't be just. Remember, God has to be consistent with his nature. That's just who he is. Okay? The feelings that you have in your heart for humanity towards yourself, and this is all God. That's how God feels. Okay? If you see a judge and there's this, say, a 25-year-old that murdered, say, 90 people and butchered them and, whatever, right? And the judge is like, man, he had a hard childhood. I'm just going to give him 2 years in jail, right? How would your response be? You're looking at your phone. What would your response be? You want to go to the comment section or write in your, how dare you do
I
that?
thought God was lying.
Yeah, right? No, you would be bothered by it. And the reason why you'd be bothered by it is because justice was not served. That person deserves death. That person deserves life, and etc. Right? Match the crime. That judge did not do their part. Right? The same thing with God. Right? And the thing is, it's a human issue. This is why animal sacrifices only went so far, because it was an animal. Right? It was flesh. It had blood, and that's the heart of it. It was blood. But justice had to be served, and only a human being can help humanity, right? And that's why God became a human being, to represent a human being. Notice verse 17 and 18 where it says, "Therefore, he had to be made like his brothers in every aspect, so that he might become merciful and faithful." What? High priest in the service of God, to make propitiation for the sins of his people. So, what's a high priest? A high priest is the one that sacrificed the animal once a year, right? But a high priest represented humanity to God. So if there's God, it's like, I represent these people on your behalf. And vice versa to the people, the high priest represented God to the people. You see that? But it was so limiting. It's because it was only a human being. But when it says that Jesus is the ultimate high priest, he does that fully, in the sense of he is God, he is representing God to humanity, and he is now fully man. So he's representing man to God. And when it says he's the high priest, what did the high priest do? They sacrificed an animal. What did Jesus do? Sacrifice himself. So a human can only pay for the sins, justice, right, to humans, and only, the thing is this, it couldn't just be a human being, because that's an eternal amount of guilt that had to be paid for in light of an eternal being, right? But only God could do that. You see, this is why God had to become man, to essentially be that high priest for us. So it's justice, it's love together. Does that make sense? I've wondered the same thing too. I'm like, why can't God? But like, oh yeah, there's a logic to it. There's a you have to fit the criteria of love and justice. From us, we just think love, right? But yeah, you're right. That justice part needed to be paid for, right? Now you wonder why blood. It's just that blood represents life, a life for life, right? So, right? You ever see the new Superman, right? Oh, do you bleed? Remember that? Like it was a big issue when Superman bled, right? And the same concept with God is that God bleeds when he becomes a human being, meaning he was fully man. Okay, so any questions? I know it's a lot, but essentially, Jesus is more superior than the angels. Okay. He is more superior than the angels, and it was a thought that they believed, man, Jesus is just a glorified angel. No, he's above the angels. And here, chapter 2, he became a human being. But hey, don't drift away from this idea. Don't drift away from the gospel. Don't be passive in your faith. Right? So. Any questions, guys, online?
No, this has been very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll continue next week.